Next in our isolation interviews, we're taking you to Australia, and of course, massive day of racing, day 2 of the championship. So we've got an expert on our team. We've got Racing and Sports handicapper, Aidan Blencowe. Aidan, thanks for coming in and giving us the benefit of your expertise. Geez, some good racing this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll take expertise. Thanks for that. No, pleasure to join you. Yeah, it's great racing this weekend. We're obviously lucky to have it on there, and yeah, really looking forward to it. Got a terrific card. There'll be no crowds there, obviously, but yeah, a terrific card to be watching from the couch for sure.
Absolutely. The chief among them is that Queen Elizabeth. It's obviously got our Kiwi horses, Tiako Shark and Melody Bell. Just seen a message from our TAB as well saying money back 2nd, 3rd and 4th if you are going to bet those horses on Saturday. First of all, just assess the race from a handicapping point of view for you, Adam.
Yeah, it's a top class race. It's sort of worth the billing as the headline act there, and DANON Premium sort of the star of the show, star of the card, if you like. He might even be the most interesting horse for the entire autumn, to be honest. He's a fascinating horse there. The big Japanese runner, he comes across, got a time form rating of 127. So he's a big dog. He's the real deal. And if he gets his ground, I think that's probably the little query there. If he gets his ground, he's pretty clearly the horse to beat. We're getting sort of mixed signals about what we might get ground wise. There's obviously, it's this time of year in Sydney, there's rain around. So yeah, we're looking to the skies a little bit. I don't know. Soft ground, I think, should be okay for him. The record of deep impacts on soft ground is a bit patchy. I think strike rate drops from sort of something like 34 to 8%. So there is a drop away there for deep impacts. But the stories coming out of Canberra that he's flying along on soft ground out there. So assuming it's not apocalyptic out there at Randwick on Saturday, and I think we're sort of hopeful that that's not the case. Then he's a terrific horse for that. He's got those 2 obvious pieces of form as well in Japan, the 2 that Australian and Kiwi punters will gravitate to. Obviously, beating Liz Grousseau in fast time. He ran fast time that day. So I'm saying that was I think there'd probably be a little case that she was stiff in the run there. She had the tougher run, but the time they ran, you can't fluke that. So I'm putting that down as a legitimate defeat of Liz Grousseau. And then the Tenno show run, again, just world-class time behind Almond Eye. And if you can, I mean, she saw him off in the end comfortably enough, but if you can go eyeball to eyeball with Almond Eye, you're top class. And the history of the Tenno show as well will tell you it's a slightly better race, in historical terms than the Queen Elizabeth. The Queen Elizabeth got a little bump in recent years because of Winks, of course, but you sort of look at the pars that they run in those sort of races. I think if you can measure up in a Tenno show, you're a big shout in QE. But it's a great. You mentioned the 2 Kiwis there, Melody Bell. She's just fantastic, isn't she? She's so reliable. You could make a case she should have won the All-Star Mile. I think that might be generous, but the margin was unfair. She got held up at a key stage there, and then the Doncaster 4 wide the trip. So she's going, you'd have to say as well as admirable as always in her 2 runs coming in. And her McKinnon run, you tie her back in through that McKinnon run in the spring. She was fantastic, over 2,000 on the back up there. So looking at a similar sort of profile this time around as she had in the McKinnon, and you could make a case she was a bit stiff not to give Magic Wand plenty to think about there. And Magic Wand ties a Deeb in from Royal Ascot last year, so you can certainly tie her right to the form lines there. And Adeeb's got to be a fantastic chance. He's the opposite to DANON Premium. He'll be rain dancing out there at Canterbury and hoping that it pours, because the stable have made it very clear that basically he wants it deep. So the wetter the better for him. He was fantastic first up in the Ram, but even though the stable were really chilly on him, they were pretty keen to tell everyone that he'd improve for that run. His record says he'd improve for that run as well, but we got a good scenario there where they didn't go particularly fast early, and then they just boomed home. So probably didn't strain his fitness too much, but the figures, they ran maybe a soft overall time, but the closing 800 that he ran was awesome. So he's in great nick, very elegant. The Kiwi filly there, she was terrific chasing him, and I think improved a bit to win the BMW. But she again probably wants that rein to hit, I would think, and maybe there's a suspicion that she sort of peaked for that BMW and buttering up again will test her. But she was almost freakish in that BMW, so you couldn't knock her. And then Tiako Shark, who comes off the rider where he was, it was a scratchy run, of course, and it was just an ordinary race. The rider, there was no pressure in it, and he got keen, and I think we all know that's not the real Shark. And before that, he'd run those awesome sectionals to run down Very Elegant. So I mean, there he is. Off that, he's one of the best chances in the race. I think at that point everyone thought he was the horse to beat in the QE. And as I said, the rider was an unsatisfactory race all round, so I wouldn't want to read too much into it. So yeah, given that, I haven't even mentioned Master of Wine, and he's in there improving with, he's got time form P's all over his record there, and looks like he's up to something like this level, although he's picked some sort of race to try his first hand in a Group 1. He he hasn't found a soft one, that's for sure. But yeah, it's just rattling through all of that. It's a deep race.
Can you rate them for us? Give us a top three on how you're rating them, Adam.
I would say DANON Premium has to be the top dog. I mean, as I said, I think there might be an element of ground dependence there, but he's got the best time form rating in the race, so I've got to be with him. I'll say Tiaka Shark if he gets get that sort of good side ground. I think Tiaka Shark's absolute peaks are good enough for me to think that he's the main danger. Very elegant, obviously, as well off that BMW run if she can replicate that. So they'd be my 1, 2, 3, and that leaves a Dave out, which is a pretty dangerous game. Obviously, if he gets his ground, he's hard to beat. I feel like a Dave is more solid, and Melody Bell probably fits the same mold, whereas those other three look like they've got that more freakish spike, and I would be surprised if at least one of them didn't turn up and run to that sort of big spike level. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, what a race. Absolutely. Let's jump back a couple of races to the Australian Oaks at Group 1 as well. Fillies go around. We've got PROBABEEL, who comes off a pretty good second in the Vinery, chasing home Shout the Bar that day, and since then we've seen the Adrian Knox where Colette's come out and been really impressive. How are you assessing this one?
Yeah, that's the clash, isn't it? You've got I suppose that's the clash in the Oaks every year. You get that Adrian Knox versus the Vinery sort of lineup, and the Vinery fillies tend to be the trendier, the sexier ones, and then you've got the sort of slower build through the Adrian Knox. The Adrian Knox this year was really strong. It was fast. They ran really good time. So I can see why Colette has her fans, and I can see that she's probably a more sure stayer than the sort of fillies coming through the Vinery. She looks like she's going to relish 2400. She was so strong at the end of that fast 2000 last week. But I think if they run it steady enough for PROBABEEL, she's got a series of ratings that are ahead of where those Adrian Knox fillies are. She's a high class filly, plenty about PROBABEEL. So she's done it here, she's done it there, and she's got a series, as I said, of really good times. So I think if there's a soft enough patch through the middle of that race and she gets a chance, because I think there would be some sort of query on PROBABEEL staying a mile and a half, but if she gets a chance to sort of run to her figures or anywhere near them, to be honest, then I think she'll just do them for class. And we see that in Oaks quite a bit. If it's not a really out and out test, the classy filly, even if she's not a natural mile and a half filly, can sort of beat them. So I thought she had enough substance to her ratings and enough of an edge in her ratings to be favoured over Colette, even though I can see the case for Colette there. So I'll be backing PROBABEEL, I would say, there on Saturday. I think there's a nice enough little scenario there as well where she's drawn with Shout the Bar, just to have Shout the Bar drag her across and get her into a handy enough spot there. And if she can get to a handy spot ahead of some of the dead wood and get to sleep through the middle stages there, then I think she's a good bet.
That's music to our ears. Anyhow, Adam, let's go to the Sydney Cup, which splits those two races. It's a more even race. We've obviously got New Zealand interest around the Chosen One and Etta James. Yogi also began his career in New Zealand as well. But on a ratings point of view, how have you got them stacked up?
Yeah, it probably looked like going to be a better race than this a month ago. I think Shared Ambition and Master of Wine at that point was sort of maybe steering towards this, and then we had Mugatoo as well. It was looking like a Sydney Cup for the ages, and now it's probably fallen away a little bit. So I think it probably will be running one up towards the top there with Mustaji was fantastic in that BMW behind Very Elegant. I think that was a good effort, really. I think, as I said, I think that's a fairly potent race, that BMW. So yeah, he was blown away by her, but he outmuscled Avilius there into second. That's pretty good form. I think 2 miles will be no problem for him. I think 2 miles won't be a problem for Young Rascal as well. And if I look at them off their UK ratings, I'd have to say Young Rascal's probably a slightly better horse than Mustaji. He's got a couple of better ratings in sort of group races over there, and he's still probably a little bit more lightly raced and maybe a little bit more potential as well. So I'm probably not telling you anything that the market's not telling you there, that Young Rascal's the horse to beat. But as I say, I think it's dropped away a fair bit, and I think a bit of rain around is not going to worry Young Rascal as well. So he's favourite, and I think with a good favourite's chance in a race that I think it's fallen away a bit, and not a huge amount of depth to it.
Okay, yeah, and the other race we just want to get a quick word on, Adam, is the Legacy, the COOLMORE Legacy. In there, the mares go around, and it's a high-class field, but I don't know, is there a standout in here?
I think you probably summed it up pretty well there. Is there FUNSTAR is the one. She's the standout, but then she was pretty ordinary, I thought, last start. And I know that you could make the case, she didn't stay the 2000 and back to the miles better, but gee, I think, everyone sort of expected that she'd stayed 2000, no problem. She's by Adelaide, and everything she's done to this point has said, wait till she gets to 2000. Then she got there and she was plain, and they only crawled along there as well. So it wasn't as if it was really testing 2000. So I expected more from her there. But having said that, 2 starts ago, she beats the Derby winner and runs really good time and looks fantastic. And she's come through the sort of profile of Waller's fillies. He puts his good fillies through that same campaign year on year. So she won when she beat PROBABEEL back in the spring there. I mean, she was running, she was top class filly. Now, not Winks, of course, but sort of your first Sealy, those sort of high class fillies. She was right in that mould. So probably a bit quick to sack her off one run. But I will say she was playing, and they're probably not giving you, in the early betting anyway, they're not giving you any spoil there. So and as you make the case, if the Sydney Cup's a bit shallow, this is deep. So there's a lot of chances here. You've obviously, Doncaster winner and a Coolmore winner. So you've got the 2 Group 1 handicap winners. They're both big odds, but gee, they won them well, and you'd have to give them good chances off this. Positive Pace is absolutely airborne. And I think one that's interesting to me, PROBABEEL is probably over the odds, even though she's a bit of a non-winner, but this is the right sort of race for her. I can see her having a real knockout sort of chance. And Amangiri was pretty well fancied first up off a good trial, and she ran well and said that was a fitness blowout. So Amangiri could be a really big improver, and she's one that I'd certainly be entertaining. But if there's a standout, it's the 3-year-old filly FUNSTAR, but she's just got to put that last start behind her.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you giving us the time, Adam, and going through what's a wonderful card there on day 2 of championships at Randwick. Get on to racingandsports.com and we can get through. It's an amazing resource, isn't it, that you're providing for us?
Yeah, I'm biased, but I think so. Yeah, you should definitely get there.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much.
Okay, cheers.